Episode 139 Above Ground Podcast. Trigger warning.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Above Ground Podcast, episode 139.
What's up, everyone? How we doing out there, pod peeps?
Y'all know Will Foley?
You know who that is? You down with TPP? We're kind of leaning in a little light tonight.
A little light? You know, I was a little off my game because I'm used to you kind of taking the reins. So I was like, I don't know how to do this part.
That's why I wanted you to do it. I wanted to throw everybody a curveball.
A little curveball for everybody. So if you're listening for the first time, thank you. If you're a repeat offender, we appreciate your support. And
absolutely,
what are we talking about,
dude? We're talking trigger.
Trigger.
And we're not talking about trigger finger. Clicking your mouse, we're talking about triggers, the things that trigger us. Trigger warning. Okay?
Trigger warning?
Everybody's got a trigger warning now. So better watch out. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you hurt. It's going to make you...
I know, and here's the thing, dude. And this is kind of what I came up because I, in my last therapy session, we talked about triggers and stuff and knowing your triggers and I feel like, as we always come back to this, it's all inside. So it's like, in a way, I feel like nobody can really, like, oh, they triggered me. Well, like, no, they didn't trigger you. There was a situation that triggered something within you that you need to heal.
Right, but that's what a trigger is.
A
trigger starts the process.
I know. I just don't like the way that it's kind of portrayed, maybe.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just getting to the point, like, I can't mow my lawn because my neighbor's triggered. It's just getting out of control. You know what I mean? So it's like, at some point, it's like, am I triggering you, or is there something inside of you that because of a situation that we're in? Well, and
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy too, because on the way here to this session, I'm listening to Oprah Winfrey, the
book?
Beauties of Sunday.
Oh.
No, the Beauties of Sunday, where she has like a bunch of the Super Soul
Sunday.
Soul Sunday, yeah. And I happen to be on the John Kabat-Zinn part now, but Gary Zukav, who wrote The Seed of the Soul, was on before.
Okay.
And I'm really starting to learn my own triggers and actually like. Finally realizing, like, there's been some lights that have just turned on all of a sudden, and then and shit, and I'm starting to realize where some of these triggers come from.
That's good.
And a trigger really is. We all have things that we've subconsciously just sucked into ourselves that have placed themselves on the hard drive, and you get yourself into the situation, and we all know this. We all know that this little adage about road rage. Road rage is not about the person cutting you off. It's never about that. It's always about something else deep inside of you.
Right.
And,
right. See, that's a good.
That's really what being triggered is. It's the trigger was the fact that you got cut off, but the fact that you got cut off and pissed off about it doesn't say that you got pissed off because of that. You don't. And that's the thing I'm learning about my own anger. My own anger is a deep-seated feeling that I was unheard and I was unloved.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that happen in the day that set me off in down the wrong path. And along this walk, and it's unless you start to actually like pull back the onion and start looking and start getting a little deeper, and we talk about asking better questions, and then one question leads to another. And then you start to realize that this trigger was this. You know, you start to realize that that guy cutting you off in traffic was because, you know, you weren't heard as a 5-year-old. And it's crazy how as a child we are way more in tune, way more. And every child is. Every child.
For sure, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And we're so stuffed in because most of our parents, at least for our age range, from what I'm seeing, dude, like, didn't have any sort of grip on so many things.
Yeah. And I think that kind of, you know, I don't want to say sums it up, but like kind of encompasses a lot is what you just said, is that kids, you know, they have this, that like, I don't know, what did you just call it?
Well, they have
like
beginner's mind.
It's, yeah. And well, the thing is like these, if you want to call them triggers, trauma, all these things that compile up, they're individualized experiences that we experience. So we take these, you know what I mean? So by the age of 6, you're not really going to have I mean, you know, the average person isn't going to have too many of those.
And I hope not. You hope not.
Right.
You hope not.
I didn't know how to really put that. But anyways, I'm not invalidating anybody. I'm just saying, like, so, you know, you're not going to have all this, you know, stuff to unpack and heal through, you know what I mean? But when you're 30 and you've gone through, you know, a couple jobs, a divorce, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like this and that, you have these experiences, and sometimes we hold on to them, or like you said, subconsciously they're, you know, trapped within us.
For me, it all stems from that. I recently in a therapy session, I was told by my therapist that we got to start getting at the root of some of the things. So she asked me, and I said, I gave her a Reader's Digest of 0 through 10. And she was like, okay, we got a lot of work to do. Because that's, in reality, and again, man, I'm not blaming my parents. I'm not. I'm beyond that.
Right.
They did the best they could, and with the shit that they were thrown into and the things that they had to deal with themselves, they weren't capable.
Right.
And I can't fault anybody for that. Because to be honest with you, up until the last year, I actually haven't been very capable. I'm pretty good at faking it.
Right.
But I've really, the last year has really shown me a lot of things, like all the things that I've learned and the things that we talk about.
That's, you know what I mean?
I'm starting to finally find integration, and I'm finally finding integrity. Like that, because that's really what integrity for me is integrating those lessons and being able to, and dude, just like you say, put the constellation together, and the constellation starts here, but it really ends up over there, and it's because it's a timeline.
Sure.
Now, if you don't, and unfortunately, and maybe this isn't, and maybe you can attest to this too, is that if we don't know about these things, we just, like you said, we keep packing and packing and packing stuff on.
Yeah.
So it makes it very difficult to get to the root.
Fun ride.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, because you don't know where the root is, like you said, and half the times
it's all overgrown with.
It's just so stuffed in, you know, and I'll say this. You know, and just for this conversation and for no other reason, but I remember this was a while ago, and you know, just working with my therapist for many years, and you know, more things come out, and you know, as you uncover things, you uncover more things. So, anyways, she just kind of was like trying to see more of childhood side of things, and because she was like, there's some kind of trauma in your life. And I'm like I wasn't abused, I wasn't in war, you know what I mean? In my head, that's what I'm doing. And she's like, well, like, you don't need, you know. And so we went through some stuff, and you know, when I was just around the age of 2, right before I turned 2, my mom was diagnosed with Hodgkin's. You know,
lymphoma, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, in and out of the hospital, plus people, you know, kind of taking care of her when, you know, that crucial time when I need her to take care of me. You know, and I'm not saying it like, you know, poor me or like I'm mad, but just, you know, that's a situation where, you know, abandonment can, you know what I mean, that sort of trauma around that one main issue. You know?
That honestly is the root of all my problems.
Pretty much,
is abandonment, and that feeling of never being enough, never feeling like you're heard. And then you know what it's done? It's actually made me into that same person who doesn't hear.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't, and that's
well, good for you for noticing that, though. I think that's big.
You know what, man, that's big, and going forward, it'll be super important. But unfortunately, it's really put a lot of dings.
Yeah, but you can't. I mean,
in the dynamic, in the family,
you got to look. You know what I mean? We have eyes in the front of our head. You know what I mean? You can't focus on what happened in the dings in the rear end of your vehicle. You gotta, you know,
no,
gas
you can't.
it up and keep.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, man, and this is what I'm learning, and I understand where you're coming from, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right.
It's really like it's about taking responsibility.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, yes, you have to take responsibility for your stuff, and you don't have to take responsibility for stuff that's not yours to be responsible for. And I had to learn how to do that also, like, because I was the fixer as a kid. You know what I was?
Well, sure.
I was the one who was looked to fix every fucking thing, and I couldn't even, like, you know, and
you should not have been in that position as a child.
No, and
then as you progress in your life, you become the fixer, and you you may rely on somebody else's, you know, reaction to, you know, I fixed you, so you're better, right? Like, and if they're not better, then you take it upon yourself, like, oh, Jesus, I couldn't fix them.
Well,
you know,
see, now I'm the opposite. I needed, like, I stopped being the fixer, and then made it feel like I needed to be fixed. So it really does, like, it's the crazy thing about cycles is you repeat them. And you may not repeat them exactly the way they were, but if you really start nitpicking the pepperoni off the pizza, you'll find the sauce has got the same taste. Yeah. So,
do you think that you kind of you repeat them, but like you said, in a bit of a different way? So, do you think that it's almost like, you know, Unity saying, we're going to give you another shot at this. Like, maybe this angle, you'll see it better.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because it was Gary Zukav, when I was listening to that on the way up here, that said that when you ask for that type of spiritual awakening, it will be granted to you. And you will be forced to reckon karma. And he uses the word karma because karma is really cause and effect. There's a cause to every effect. So that is what karma is. Basically, you do this. Right. Doesn't mean but it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, I've used that for myself in, like, you know, in certain, like, situations, like, you know, hey, like, this person cut me off or whatever, and, like, okay, well, that's his karma, but how I react to it is my karma. That's how I kind of tell myself in my head to kind of, like, give me that breath and pause to go, yeah, whatever, see you later. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I'm starting to get better at the pause.
Yeah, believe me, I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm good at it, but
it's really affected. What it's really affected in my entire life is my presence. It's affected my ability to be present.
Sure, because you're always.
Dude, and I didn't realize this because I'm feeling a lot of the same alarms that I felt as a kid.
Really?
Right now.
Well,
yes,
maybe
because
you're in there healing, like you're in there digging.
Oh, I am, and I'm also, like, forced to look at the path that I'm walking, and, you know, I'm forced to look at the fact that, you know, I haven't exactly been the best partner, and I have to accept my part of that.
Sure.
And I do, and I fully accept it. Unfortunately, some of that acceptance has caused a lot of just pain. And I told you this the other day. It like when I texted you on Sunday, it felt like, dude, it felt like a pipe burst, and I could not stop.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of days like that, and of course, I have been a little uppity, and I'm not sleeping, so that's kind of led, like, she even said it to me today that she goes, "Do you think you should think about medicine again?" Because she's like, you seem a little bit on the manic part of it now, because now all of a sudden you got a lot of energy, you're ready to go. But here's the thing that's different now, is that I'm actually consciously going. I'm trying to put a path together forward for myself and get back to what I know works for me.
Okay.
And exercise did work for me before, and I like it. So, but I tend to overdo, like, I'm not doing anything, and all of a sudden you're doing everything, and then you're killing yourself. You know what I mean? You're killing
that balance.
Yeah, and I've never had balance.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. What do you like?
What, for balance?
No, as far as like, what are you discovering? Like, what have you discovered about? Like, what is looking at your triggers made you discover? What have you uncovered? And
a lot of it is I don't want to say it in like a way like I already knew, but a lot of it's that same thing, like you said. A lot of it falls back on that for me. A lot of it goes back to that same thing. You know, whether it's an abandonment thing, or it's like some sort of like a trauma response, but it just helps me, at least. What it helps me with the most is not judging what I'm going through, if that makes sense.
How about your outlook on other people? Because I know
what you're saying. Yes.
Has it caused you to be more empathetic? Has that been a byproduct of you discovering these?
Yeah, a little. Yes, for sure. I actually noticed that, like, weird. It was like a stage like a while ago when I really was like full force and I think it kind of, I don't know, it like kind of comes and goes. So depending on where I am, what environment I'm in and stuff like that, it's all part of it. But I guess I don't know. I think it's just more of the whole. It's all an inside job. It's just things that I am identifying and need to work on. You know, but the base of it is that, you know, that base slab of concrete is the I'm not good enough kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, and we talk about foundations all the time, man.
Yeah.
You know, with cracks in that foundation, you're not going to be able to keep.
No, you can't like, you know, build a house that's going to be sustainable and you know, work for you for years. You know, you got to fix that. You got to fix that concrete slab, that foundation, and with that foundation, that, you know, if you have a strong foundation, then the rest, I think, will, you know, kind of fall into place. Not saying, you know, you can sit back and watch it fall into place, but it will be, you know, it's like putting that puzzle together. You do the outside ring, and then maybe
maybe you can pick out the inside pieces.
For sure.
You know, and it's funny that you said you can't watch it get put together, because that's the secret. The secret is that it's all work. You can now, granted, you need to sit back when you've accomplished something, and you need to celebrate, and you need to mourn.
You're right.
You need to celebrate and you need to mourn.
I think that's some of my problem is I don't celebrate because, like you, we're all like, well, like, you know, like I don't see it. Like I don't see it. Like it's just kind of my, you know what I mean? Like a few weeks ago we did, we had the episode we were talking about like, you know, I think we were talking about like being vulnerable with the episodes and stuff like that. And you were like, I just do this because it's kind of part of me and like what you know what I mean? So that's kind of, for me, it's just, I connect it with that because it's like, we don't see it as like a little strength or a little win. And I think that's something that I eventually definitely need to start like stopping and going, yeah, you know what? Like, instead of focusing on that continuous next step, like stop and go, you know what? I'm not where I was a year ago, and I did some work, and I'm happy, and you know, for sure.
It's important to celebrate.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's important to celebrate, and it's important to mourn. And I did not realize how important it was to mourn. And then I've been doing a lot of mourning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been a big part of my problem. I'm mourning. I mean, you know, my therapist did say she thinks I'm going through a midlife crisis.
Really?
But then she's like, you also have a lot of stuff that, so she goes, you can't beat yourself up about going through all this stuff, because she goes, you've had a lot to handle, and you've still got a lot to handle.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say, like, you had a lot to handle, and that's the thing. It's like we talk about that the record, you know, the continuous record, and when that needle's on that record, that groove is so deep and ingrained that it's hard to take that needle up and put it on another track.
And the thing is, you can go out and buy another copy of that vinyl, and you'll still put it on that same fucking song.
The needle will go right to that thing.
It'll just go right there.
Again, these experiences are, you know what I mean, have developed that groove in the record. These experiences, all these situations that we've been in, these traumas that have happened to us, have that power to make the pathway there. You know what I mean? And to, you know, again, if you 20 years of making a pathway, to stop it and then to break it and to make a new one is going to be a very hard thing to do. You know, it's not going to be a overnight thing. It's not going to be it's not going to be just one thing, as I've said before. It's not one thing that gets us here, and it's never going to be one thing that gets us out. You can't go, all right, well, I'm just gonna try a therapy session or two, and that'll work. Or, oh, you know what, I'm not going to do any therapy. I'm going to try medicine, or I'm going to try yoga. Like, combine all these things, pick 3 or 4, and that you know, make it a daily routine. Like, make it part of your life, as if people do when you know, like with any kind of like working out, any of that athletic, like weight loss, any of those things. It's like they integrate these things into their lives, and they do, like, it's a lifestyle change.
It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah,
you gotta, like, again, you've got a glove, so you gotta put a little, you gotta put something on every finger in a glove. So you put a glove together of you know, of these few things that you can make yourself every day feel better.
Oh, that's a good one. All right,
you know what I mean? Because so what do you think are some triggers? What are some triggers for you that we haven't talked about?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, there's kind of different there's different triggers for me. I think I'm kind of a very sensory person. So for me, I have internal triggers and I have external triggers. So like, for me, environment is a big variable for me, like, depending on where I am. I notice, like, if I'm in certain places with certain people, then, you know, I just notice, again, like, I try to really tune into my body, and if I'm tensing up or whatever, you know, whatever it may be, if I'm feeling a certain thing here, for, you know, then I just try to pay attention to that. And again, there's the part of the dots, connecting the dots and seeing that. But the kind of what we talked about before, like, not being heard, but it's not, for me, it's not like, I don't need the validation. I just want it to be, like, considered, almost like, okay, like, let's say, you know, that I don't want to go out drinking with some of the guys, okay? You already know that, so you're like, I'm not going to ask them. But, like, I'd rather be asked than say no, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Just, I don't know why. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just maybe, you know.
Well, it's that need for connection.
Yeah.
It's that need, because regardless of whether that's a valid, like,
And
that is validation.
And that's
so,
and that's the thing. And then on top of that, like I'll just be like, it's nothing big, it's whatever it is, and then our thoughts, we're judging that thing, so it's just making it more.
Do you find yourself doing the same thing though to other people?
No, at least I try not to. I kind of, but here's the thing, I try not to, but I also, and I understand this. I understand everybody's different, so it's not always going to be the same thing. But like I try to feel, I say to myself what I would like in this situation, and that's what I try to provide for the other person. And again, that might not be what they not want or need, which is fine. But I'm doing what I'm able to do. I'm doing the best that I can at that moment.
Right, and that's a big that for me is a big thing. Is a big like
trigger for you.
It's a big trigger for me when people try to do something for me that I don't want them to do.
Right, because
that to me says, okay, you're not paying attention. And that's a big trigger for me. And then I find myself doing the same thing. Because that's how I learn, though. Also,
right.
I learned a lot of this stuff that way.
Do you think that triggers are kind of like cognitive distortions?
They are. Well, I don't know if the essence of the trigger is a cognitive distortion.
Okay.
But I think that triggers cause cognitive distortions.
Good. Well said.
They're effects of.
Yep.
And I think that if we can minimize them, but the only way to minimize them is to know what they are.
Right.
And
recognize them.
And here's the buzzword of the day, to be mindful enough to do it. But that is not something that most of us humans can do without practice.
Sure.
And I still don't even necessarily know if, judging by the way we see the world now, even people who listen to our kinds of stuff and read the kinds of books we do, most people read stuff and put it on the shelf and don't ever do anything with it.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I used to be the same way.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be about having the book on the shelf and saying, oh, I got the book.
Right. And that you're absolutely right. I think that's it. I mean, how many people do you see... I don't know if there's workout garb. You know what I mean? They have the certain like yoga pants and stuff, and then they go to the store like, "Hey, look at me! Like I worked out." Yeah, like the uniform. It's just like, I mean, what happened to the day you could just work out in anything? You don't need to spend an extra $60 on a special pair of pants so you can work out. It's just like, come on, man. There's media like fooling you into this, gaslighting you into this whole.
Yeah, I don't want to get that deep into it because some people, yes, for some people that is. But I think that can also play. Granted, somebody wants to go work out and doesn't work out. Maybe buying an outfit actually makes them
help them. Sure.
Helps them.
That's fair.
So
no. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying.
No, I know you're not.
I think that's a valid piece to it. Because if, like you said, people will buy the books and they're just like, oh, I got that book, and kind of what you said a second ago, you were like about talking about mindfulness and it takes time. But here I am thinking like, you know what though? Like, let's say, 10-year-old Billy, give him a soccer ball and so you're not going to be able to like play soccer in the matter of, one day. It's like it takes time, right? Everything takes time.
Everything takes time.
So it's like,
but a soccer ball though, you can kick around.
You can kick around. But you know what you can do with mindfulness? You can grab a hard candy and throw it in your mouth.
Right. You can learn, and that's the thing. You can take small steps.
Right.
And you're not gonna be Pele
but that's what I'm trying
Neymar
to say.
in a day. But you can certainly
and that's what I'm trying
get
to
the
say.
feel for what it is.
Right. Like, because we always say, oh, this stuff's hard, which it is, but like, drawing is hard, and coming up, if you're a songwriter, coming up with songs and lyrics and writing this and that, that's all hard too. Playing basketball is hard.
Absolutely. Everything is hard when you don't know how to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And the only way, and again though, but if you're triggered by that, because I still haven't gotten to the root of that as to why I think like
what you were just talking about.
Like what I was, we were just talking about how you do something and you think you're going to be able to do it.
Can you give me a situation?
Dude. When I worked for the post office,
okay,
and this is the God's honest truth. I saw what was going on and I thought it was easy. And then the fucking first time I got dropped on the street by myself, and I'm standing there in the back of the truck trying to figure out which way I'm walking, dude, I freaked out. And you know this.
Yeah.
For years.
It's
for years.
It's overwhelming.
It's super overwhelming.
For sure.
And then when you put that shit in my brain, and my brain is already reeling from stuff that I didn't mourn to get into there. It's just there's so many onions in the bag that added to that.
You said that you would kind of do that. You would also like do that yourself. So you mean like you would put somebody in that same situation?
No,
is that what you meant? Or?
I do it for a lot of things, like stuff at home. I know I need to learn how to work on stuff at home, but I don't know how to do it, so I just don't. It freaks me out.
Okay, so yeah, so you don't So
you don't do it.
Okay, so
or you half-ass it, and
it all comes back to what? What do we always talk about? Because you're saying it right now.
Well, it all comes back to
I'm not good enough. I can't do it.
Right, I can't do it.
That's why you don't want to try something.
You think you can do it.
Right. And then
you're all like excited and the things lead you up to it.
Right.
Because it takes a lot to get to a certain level.
You can't do this.
Right.
Who the hell are you thinking
Right,
you are
right.
to try and attempt this? And then you go, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna step away from this emotion because it's making me feel something negative or vulnerable, and I don't want to feel that right now.
Well, or if you're me, you jump into the vat of emotions and you drown in them.
Or that too, right? Yes.
And that's, but again, because it's comfortable, because that's how you know how to cope. And that for me has always been a coping strategy. It's a terrible coping strategy
to jump right in
to the emotions and just feel them all. And
what do you do when you?
Well,
when you jump
mostly
in,
negative.
You just feel,
it's just negative. I feel everything negative.
So you just let yourself feel it and then kind of wait for things to dissipate, or
you would like to, but they never seem to dissipate. That's the problem.
You always got them clingers on.
Yeah, dude, clingers suck. Bitter clingers,
like leeches.
They are. Oh,
damn. Okay, yeah, that's a tough situation right there. It's just because you know goes back.
I do that with everything, man. I'm in this process now of making some pretty big some pretty big moves, and I'm not going to talk about them right now until they start going. But
I think you're kind of, for me at least, I've noticed a change that you're kind of you might be more anxious inside, but it seems like you're kind of letting go a little bit.
I'm trying.
I see
letting
it.
go.
I mean,
letting go
and just,
is the hardest thing ever.
Why do you? Let me ask you that. Why do you think it's so hard? At least for you.
For me, it's hard because it all goes back to worthiness, and what it really boils down to is self-love. And if you don't love yourself enough to think you're worthy,
down to that.
It does.
Damn you, self-love! Damn you to hell!
All the way. All the way.
It does, man. That's what I mean. It's like everything we were talking about. I feel like the triggers. It all just it leads back to self-love.
It does.
It really does. Self-worth.
Now, I don't know where you were for loving yourself, 10 years ago as opposed to now. I tend to think you do more now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't even think I would have called it self-love 10 years ago.
No, you would have been. You would have probably flipped me off and been like, "Go fuck yourself."
Yeah. No.
What do you mean self-love? I'm not doing that in public.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm not doing that in public. Watch me. Yeah. No. But I also didn't. I don't think I owned it as like now. I just own it. I'm like, it is what it is. So it's like I think I would. I just didn't own it. That's all. I don't really know how else to describe it. Like I just didn't own it. I may have thought I realized that something's not there. There's a bunch of shit missing, and there's an empty hole. But whatever.
When how you said about letting go, I actually had this insight recently, and I realized that the hole that's in me is never going to be filled by anything. It's just going to be there. And I have to learn how to navigate around it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me any less.
Right.
It's just a hole that
it's just something
that didn't get filled. And
so you don't think that, like, your music, writing some music and putting out some new stuff, you don't think that helps fill it?
It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's kind of why I've stopped performing. Like, performing doesn't fill it at all anymore for me. Like,
let me ask you this then. Do you think that doing that stuff helps it from getting bigger, like a bigger hole?
Well, a creative outlet always helps.
Yeah.
You just what I've learned about myself is that you can only you can only go through the same thing over and over again before, competency is great.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think the heart, the mind can only take so much.
It can, and you can only go back to the same well so many times before it's dry. And not that I'm empty of ideas or anything. It's just like
I know.
I'll be honest with you. I'm just sick of me. Like you just get sick of you get sick of you, and that's where the spiritual awakening starts. Like that's what Gary Zukov says. He says when you're sick of yourself,
right?
That's when the opening has happened,
right?
And again, you have to be willing to open up to that.
Sure. But I guess maybe that kind of answers a question, because I always wonder why we have to wait for that, like almost like a crisis. We wait until we're at that.
Well, the thing is that most people won't change unless there's a major health crisis, an accident, something traumatic. They win the lot. Like something has to flip the switch. And I've learned this for myself. Everybody can tell me till they're blue in the face what they see about me, but until I see it, it isn't going to matter.
I know. I had this conversation with somebody a long time ago, and I tried to tell them the same thing. It's like you can tell. Like I'll just use this as an example. If you're talking to somebody with a self-love deficit, you can tell them 100 times in a day that they're awesome and they're worthy. It doesn't matter unless they feel it.
Yeah, there's no clingers there, man. Like it doesn't stick.
Doesn't stick.
It doesn't, and it does. Sometimes it does the complete opposite. And I've had that, and I've expressed that recently, that I know that this was poured in, but I'm still thirsty, and it's because I can't get it, because I can't.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like you can empty your cup into someone else's, but if they're dehydrated, man, you're going to need a lot more.
Right.
Or you just may not have enough.
Right. And I think in this is, I guess I'm just looking at it more in a interpersonal relationship situation, but
well, everything is relationships.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's an intimate relationship.
Right.
But because everything is intimate. Like, not like this is an intimate relationship, just not in the intimacy of like a spousal relationship.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
So
I'm just saying, like,
but there can be just as much hurt, just as much.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just as much.
But I'm saying, like, at the same time, like, you need to be able to either fill your own water or be okay with your glass half full sort of thing. Like, because you can't sit down at the table and expect somebody to fill it for you. Right.
But what happens is that when somebody tries to fill it so many times and it's not received, they stop filling it. And they stop feeling like filling it.
Yeah.
And I get it. I totally
that's a tough. I don't know. Yeah.
But it's the reality. And when it's years, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like when you really think about it, that's really at the heart of most things, is that you can only ask so many times before you're just going to get sick of asking.
Yeah.
Not everybody, you know. And I totally understand. I get it. I totally get it.
Right.
I really do.
We, you know, again, we each have our glasses, and if my glass is cracked and yours has a hole in it, it's like we have to kind of, again, not necessarily fill our own glasses, but fix our own glasses.
Sure.
You know
but
what I mean?
Again, you have to want to take the glass off the counter and either go get a new glass or repair it.
Yeah.
So, and again, that takes readiness. And, you know, that takes coping strategies, and that takes a willingness, and it takes an openness. And, you know, not everybody's at that spot.
No, they're not.
And it makes it, you know, it can put a lot of strain. And it can really offset your system. Like I'm amazed at how my stomach and stuff has been and everything the last couple weeks, man. Hasn't been fun.
How do you feel about like avoiding triggers?
I'm the king of avoidance.
But I mean, it doesn't. I mean,
I don't think you can avoid triggers, because I think the only way you avoid triggers is by not knowing what they are, and then just chalking it up to you just being like, again. I mean, it also depends on what that's triggering in you, and I'm kind of coming at it from an anger kind of standpoint or whatever. But for my situation right now, I'm actually not angry. I'm sad.
Which is part of, I think, part of
well, it's part of grief.
Well, it's coping with it. Yeah, you have to identify
you're
it.
sad. You identify things,
right.
And you realize, wow, man, you know, it's real and it's raw and it's
So you identify it. You sit with it for a little while, and then I think you can come up with a way to deal with it.
Right.
You know, and everyone's way of dealing with it is going to be their own way.
Right. Well, you have to choose the way.
Right.
And if you're in a relationship, then you both have to make the decision, and that's tough. That is hard for a lot of people. But at some point, though, you gotta.
It is, and I think it goes back to what. That's what I was trying to say earlier. The strength in numbers episode we did like a while ago, like 4 weeks ago or whatever. We had talked about self-control, and I think
character strengths, right?
Yeah,
and
I think that plays a big role, because like you may not be able to avoid a trigger, you may not be able to change a trigger, but what you can do is change your reaction to it.
Sure, you know can, you can not let it unsettle you.
You can change your perception on it.
Right.
You know, it's like, no, you don't have to heal it the second, but you can go, you know what? I know this. I know this feeling. I know this is something inside of me. It's an alarm telling me something. So what I'm going to do for this time right now is breathe through it, because I know this situation is going to be over shortly, and try and, you know, breathe through it and work through it. And then, you know, if you have to come back to it, revisit it later, then revisit it later when you can.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that's a bad... I mean, I personally don't think that's a bad thing.
I've actually learned what boundaries are.
Well, that's a very good thing.
Like, I'm really starting to learn what boundaries are. And I'm starting to, like, you know, understand how to implement them a little bit. And it's not easy,
I think that's the hard part, is holding the boundary. Setting it is... You know, again, it's different for every person. You just have to know what the boundary that you want to set it, but then is holding it, you know, is what can be a hard thing.
Well, sure. It's like in Seinfeld, you can take the reservation, but holding the reservation. Well, we don't have your reservation, but that's what the reservation is. It's about holding.
So just kind of getting back to like the trigger aspect of it, but you know, a lot of people say that a trigger is related to a traumatic event, and there's no certain like specific list, and there's no specific emotion that kind of goes with that. So that's which we talked about, trying to identify your trigger and, you know, kind of see how what shape it is, what color it is, and all that stuff, you know?
I can tell you some of mine are prickly, some of mine are hot, some of mine are ugly.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's what they are. You know what I mean? They're ugly. We don't like to look at them. We don't want to look at them. We want to stuff them in the box over there. We don't want any of those things. They're not going to do me any good. But actually, they're there to teach you. And that actually I've learned. And I've learned in a very, very positive way that we are way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And our minds. See, the thing is that and I'm going to come back to something that you always talk about. You always talk about intent, right? You always talk about, but intention is really at the root of it, because you may want something, but what is your real true intention for wanting it? And that's where the magic is. And that was what I learned from Gary Zukav. Because that's what he said. He said, if you set he said, it's all about it's all about the intention of what you want. And I thought about it. And a lot of the things I've wanted have been to fill a lack in my life that sometimes I didn't even know was there.
Yeah, no, I get it. And see that, I don't want to cut you off, but that point, that right there that's when I'm learning about that that's when I gain some more empathy and compassion for others. It's because I realize, like, sometimes we don't know this. You know what I mean? Like,
no, we don't know.
I'm not doing this. I don't get escalated and do this, whatever, this or that for, saying, because I don't want to do these things. Sometimes they just come out, and yeah, I do have control over them, but sometimes I lose control. You know what I mean?
Well, like with intent, I mean an intention about like why you're doing a specific thing. So, or why you want a specific thing, or why this specific thing is this. And I was like, wow, that's some new excavation gold in there, man.
There's some gold in there.
I was like, wow, that's really damn good. No wonder why that book was super popular.
Which book is that?
Seat of the Soul.
Oh, okay. I don't know that one.
I haven't read it. I'm only going by the interview that I heard, and I'm like, now I got to get it.
Yeah, now you got to get it.
I got to get it.
That was
exactly.
That was huge.
But another person that really had the untethered soul.
Oh yeah,
that
Singer?
is Michael Singer. Yeah, dude, and he was the first interview on the disc.
Oh,
and it was just like it just went from that to that, and now it's the John Kabat-Zinn, and it's just like
he's that untethered soul. So
yeah, the untethered soul, dude, is like that's some shit, man. Yeah, that is some shit.
Yeah, that definitely cleared some fog for me, for sure.
Yeah, me too. It brought up a lot. It brought up a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah,
it really did. And I've listened to it quite a few times.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, what do we want to finish up with this trigger warning?
I don't know. I'm not sure if what we did. We just talked, man, and hopefully
sometimes that's what happens.
Hopefully there was something in there that someone can take away.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
Just doing what we do, just opening up conversation and getting stuff out there, unpacking things, and learning for ourselves. It's not like we go into this like, hey, we know more than you, and we're going to tell you, what to do. We're learning, and as we do this, we're learning. So, but as you said before, as we learn more, we try to put out more, and in hopes that it can help somebody else.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of this. And the intention for us, at least I think, for me anyway, was to help, but it was also for me to learn.
Sure.
And that's because
sometimes you have to learn before.
Yeah, you got to learn.
Right.
And they say that if you're that the best way to learn something is to teach it, and you might as well teach it as you're learning it, because then that gives you more insight into it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's just, it's It's those logical things that we just sometimes don't go to. And we're like,
it's so logical, logical.
Oh, great. Now
We're going to breakfast in America.
I'll be singing that all night now. Well, now that that's stuck in everybody's mind.
Right? Well, thank you so much, everybody out there, for listening again to another episode of Above Ground Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, do all that stuff. Send us a thumbs up. You can go to Buy Me a Coffee and buy us a coffee. Hey, they can buy us a coffee and we can keep the show going. Woohoo!
And thank you to people who have bought us a coffee or two. We appreciate the support, And you can support us just by subscribing to the podcast and sharing it.
Absolutely.
That helps us out a lot. And if you really want to take a little bit more time and effort, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us tremendously.
Yeah, helps everybody find it.
Plus, we like to read cool stuff, and we'll read it on the air and, say your name and all sorts of fun.
Yes, we will.
So... Go ahead, Zach.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say so until next time, unless do you have anything else?
No, that was it. That's where I was going, too. It would have been funny if we kept going, because it probably would have been in unison.
So until next time, be well.
Be safe.
Be above.